Hello, Shekinah. It's so nice to see you here today. Um, and looking beautiful as ever. I do really love your hair. And yeah, thank you so much. I know that you're on a mission at a conference today. Where exactly is it that you are? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Elemental Growth. I'm so excited about what you're offering in the world and that you invited me into your world today. I'm currently in Boulder, Colorado, at a training. I'm an ontological coach and I work with a company that trains people to become coaches. So I'm here in the second half of the training and took some time out to dive into a topic that is dear to my heart.
Yes, thank you so much. And what inspired you to get into this kind of work and field of teaching other coaches? And I mean, you actually are alumni of IIN too, right?
What's IIN? I'm not
Oh,
familiar with that.
oh no, no, you weren't. Sorry, we met
No.
through Amanda from IIN. For some reason, I thought that you were an alumni too. I'm sorry.
No, but what I would like to say is to shout out to Amanda Crichton today
Yeah.
because today's her birthday.
Yes, it is.
And Amanda introduced Ashley and I together. And Amanda is a dear sister of the heart, and we're on a path together to do our own personal work and make a difference in the world. And so you're asking me, why do I care? And the topic we were going to jump into today was we're going to use the element of air and the topic of loving ourselves. And so when I think about the element of air, I think about the breath of life. Our first breath into this, our first breath is into this life form. And our last breath is out of this life form. And so growth and air and spirituality and life force and magic and all of that I think about in the air element. Loving yourself. Wow, a topic that when I first heard that, loving yourself, some 40 years ago, I thought, oh, everyone else loves themselves but me. What is this loving yourself? And so it's been a journey over the last 40 years inward. In our world today, it seems like we're an outward focused world. And it wasn't until I began the journey inside, it's almost like taking a walk down a path from the outside into the inner world of who am I? Who is it that's looking out these eyes? Who is the one who's seeing? And when I first began this journey, Ashley, I have to say the word dislike would not be strong enough for what I felt for myself. I actually was a terrorist to myself in my own mind. I didn't even know that. I thought I was defective. I thought I was the only one that felt the way I did. And so when I began the journey into loving myself, it felt like an endless journey. It didn't seem like I was making any headway. And it was at the beginning of the idea of personal development, holistic healing. I began in 1979. My journey began by my recovery from opiate addiction and alcoholism. And when I began that journey, I thought, oh, I'm just going to remove the alcohol and the drugs, and that's going to be it. And loving myself is going to come easy. And it was just the very beginning. Fast forward today, I believe that we've come a far enough distance in what is being offered out in the world today that I believe that the energy is fast tracking people a little bit quicker into their own evolution. I know for myself, it is like we mentioned earlier when you and I were talking before we came on, is that it's a never-ending journey. But what I can say is it's a worthwhile journey. And I also want to mention that the beginning of my healing from alcoholism and drug addiction, one of the most important things that I did for myself is I was introduced to holistic healing work through a chiropractor who did acupuncture and holistic chiropractic. And what I learned was it's an inside out job as far as how to heal. Like I can't think well if I don't feed my body well. And I often mention to people that our bodies are like a car. You wouldn't put sugar into a gas tank and expect that car to run well. And yet we put sugar into our bodies, and we put lots of caffeine and processed foods and all of that. And the body doesn't know how to process that to feed our brain and our electrons and our hormones and all of that. And so I began learning to eat better. And and I have continued that. I'm 65 years young now, and I think the reason why I can feel as well as I do is because I have spent this time learning about my body and exercising. Also, the thought form. We were talking a little bit off camera about, for me, one of my biggest learnings has been that my mind has been out after me all my life. I grew up in a home where everybody was successful, and yet they were also alcoholic. And so for me, I received cultural and some family messages that then became the guides to how I would live my life. And I had to learn to begin to dissect them, to pull them apart. Some of those messages were not so favorable for me to be successful. They were things like, you don't have any goddamn brains, and if you did, you wouldn't know what to do with them. And who do you think you are to dream? And, names that my father learned to call a woman that were not so complimentary, like bitch and whore. And as I started my journey, I also wanted to understand who my father and mother was, because I learned that they only did to me what was done to them. And so my journey became not only about forgiving myself, but forgiving the people who knew not better what to do. When I look at the time that I was birthed into, it was the beginning of a revolution. The the peace and love and having a voice. And my parents, not so much. And when I think about their parents, my grandparents, they were born in the early 1900s. My parents in 1930, myself in the early 50s, 53. And oftentimes when I've done healing work for myself and others, I've said, if we look about the generation our families were birthed into, what was happening in their world at that time? Now, does that mean that they are not accountable? Of course they're accountable. And at the same time, if we don't know what we don't know, we can't make a change. And so what I do today is I look and say, if I can forgive them, can I forgive myself? Or if I can forgive myself, how can I put that forgiveness out into the world? So, as I walk this journey of loving myself, it is really about learning about who am I? What do I believe? Where did I learn how to believe what I believe? Who did I learn from? What did they believe? And when I begin to ask questions, be curious, look at new possibilities, then I'm able to find a different way of being that allows me to say who I am, not who I was told to be. So I'm going to stop there and see, Ashley, if there's anything that this triggers for you that you want to ask me or jump in yourself.
Yeah, I love it. And especially when we start talking about forgiveness is something I'm very passionate about. And when we're working with the heart chakra and air energy and stuff, I always want to come back to the affirmation of like, I forgive everyone for everything. And if you've been on this channel before, you know what I'm talking about. It's just, if you're starting to feel those kind of emotions come up, or you're going back into feel yourself being drawn back to a place because of maybe an energy that you're around or a trigger that has happened, that's a really good place to just start, is just I forgive everyone for everything, and use that affirmation to be grounded and to honor that emotion and that time of your life, but also still approach it in a loving manner. I find it very, very powerful.
And what you're talking about sounds easy to us who have been practicing this.
Yeah.
But let's say a wound comes up that we really, I get surprised occasionally where something comes up. And then just recently, let's talk about that. My little girl got her feelings hurt. She felt left out or not accepted by a group of individuals. And it immediately brought up a somatic memory in my body. What does that mean? You know, as a coach, I'm an ontological coach, so I work with body, emotion, and language. We don't get rid of somatics unless we learn how to feel that feeling, breathe through that feeling, and then accept it, not push it away, not try to change it or fix it, but notice where it is and honor it. In the beginning, when I first started this journey, I thought, well, I'll have enough education and I don't have to feel it. I'll just be spiritual, or I'll learn about my emotions and that's all I have to do. But I learned that they live inside me. And in order to have those emotions move is I have to honor them, accept them, recognize that they're part of me. Forgiveness comes from knowing that we as individuals only know a certain amount, and then we learn more. And so we look back sometimes at our past and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But we look from the place of what we know now, not what we didn't know then, right? And so forgiveness, my father is going to be 90 years old, and we have this beautiful relationship. And the reason I can forgive my father is because he didn't know what he didn't know. And as I've walked this journey of healing and have invited him in without shaming or blaming him into education about who he is now and who I am now, then I can forgive. But I did have to go to the feelings of hurt and anger and resentment at first and tease apart what was really happening for me. And then I was able to look at what was happening for them. And the heart, well, the blood, the heart, you know, it's a place where if I go into my heart, I can expand. But if there isn't an opportunity because of something wounding, then allowing myself to love that, love the place I am, even if it isn't the place I want to end up. You know, right? You know, it's like we can't push or shove ourselves past the point of where we are, but we can embrace that and say, I accept you and love you just the way you are and where you are. And I forgive you, and breathe and be with that. And that's the beginning of really loving, not to get somewhere. Like I used to think, oh, when I'm there, then I'm going to be better. And when I got there, then there was just one more thing that I had opportunity to learn about. But along the way, if I learned to love myself and be patient and recognize that this is a journey, it's not an arrival, that if we realize that we're part of a larger whole, we're part of the we field, that the healing I do for myself, it has a ripple effect. The feeling you do for yourself ripples out into the world. And the idea of what we're supposed to look like, that is all a cultural message. Who made up what beauty looked like? Who made up what the right religion or politics is? That is all made up. So I think the real important thing is what really matters in our soul and heart that makes us feel whole and complete. And then find our tribe that we feel like we can be with, that helps us grow into more of the essence that we already are. Like I'm with Ashley, and I align with Ashley in so many ways that I know of, that we're able to do where two or more are gathered, that we have a larger impact. It's not just about what we do on our own.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. And one of our blessings with having the internet and everything available to us now is that, you know, we're in two totally different countries, and we're able to connect in this way and ripple out, turn the ripple into a wave. Right.
Something I did recently, and you asked me to mention about this, is I've written a book that'll come out in December. My birthday is New Year's Eve, and Amanda Crichton is my business partner on this. She's my project manager, and it's called A Journey from Hell to Heaven, Lessons and Blessings. And I wrote this book because I was in meditation 25 years ago, and I was indicated to write this book, and I wasn't ready because it's a very difficult book. It was a book about how I ended up in addiction, and how I started healing. And I think we all are on a healing journey. There's all some kind of addiction in our lives, whether it's porno or sex or negativity or alcohol, drugs, food, whatever it is. It's a way that removes us from our wholeness. And I believe that the journey back to wholeness is recognized, number one, you're not alone, no matter what's going on with you. Someone has done it and is doing it and is on a journey of healing. And the other piece is that it's a mystery school. I believe, I can't prove this, but I believe that's why we're here on this planet. I believe that we're here for the evolution of our consciousness and how do we evolve. And there's today with the internet, which Ashley mentioned, there's so many opportunities to get information, to be guided, to get support, to know you're not alone. But the most important thing I'm going to invite you to do is listen to your intuition. So I think about air, I think about intuition, that we have an intuitive guidance inside of ourselves. And in the beginning, if you're just new to listening to your intuition, you may not trust it. It doesn't necessarily give us 100% of what it is we're supposed to be doing, but it does indicate, So now I will often say, which way am I supposed to turn? And if I hear left and I think, well, it makes sense to go right, I'll go left just to find out why. But the intuition is a guidance, a barometer. So when you're looking for a guide or a website or something like that, and you feel a yes inside of you, begin to trust that, because we are here to come whole to ourselves, to our true essence, to our soul's essence, and to our inner beauty that then shines out. And breaking down those cultural messages about you're not good enough. Wow. We all don't think we're good enough. There was a time I would have never gotten on a call like this and shared my thoughts. And I share often to people, I'm just a human being, just like the rest of you all, on this journey, walking with you, not behind you, not in front of you, but beside you. Let us walk together. Let us know that we're not alone. Let us know that we're perfectly imperfect. Let us know that the way home and the way inward is to have a mantra for yourself. Mine is do no harm. I don't want to, huh?
That was Shakespeare's too. Love all, trust few, and do harm to no one.
I didn't know that, and thank you for sharing. I had enough harm done to me that I don't choose and don't no longer want to do any harm to another human being. Gossip, stay away from it. Ask a lot of questions. What if your mind is like having negative thinking and it creates pain inside yourself where you don't feel like you belong or don't love yourself? Ask questions of the other. Let them know what you're thinking. Know that the majority of what we make up in our head isn't really going on the outside. It's only going on the inside.
Yeah, but if you are letting it manifest in there and you're not getting it out and you're not talking about it and you're holding all that in, part of love is giving and receiving. It does go both ways, and as it does with like energy in every form. So
exactly.
I got lost talking about the flow.
And I often say to people, there's 7.5 billion people on this planet. What makes us think we were supposed to do this alone, for goodness sake?
Absolutely.
I mean, and the other thing is competition. There is no competition. There's enough for everybody. Abundance. Let's just talk about loving yourself in abundance. Our thoughts around abundance come from many areas, like we've already spoken about, cultural messages. I watch what I put into my mind every day. People say to me, have you listened to the news? Well, I don't. What I do is get on the computer and I do scan the news a little bit so I'm informed. But I know that what really feeds my soul is what I put into my mind every day. And what I give out. So each morning, my thought is for loving yourself is, okay, let's talk about meditation. That frightens people when they begin. First of all, to me, meditation is quieting. So if you're quiet in the shower, you're meditating. If you're taking a walk, you're meditating. If you're being quiet, allow yourself to follow your breath. You know, some of us get into a much deeper meditation now in our lives, but that was a journey to get there. But that doesn't also give us like the answer. I mean, it's just going to quiet us and begin to be able to have the inner world have a quieting, so we're not so buzzed every day. It puts us into a different state of consciousness. But it's so important how we start our day, the fuel we put in our bodies, the people we surround ourselves with, the thoughts that we play over and over again in our brain. So I used to start with putting a piece of paper in my pocket that had a mantra on it. So if my brain was looping about something that happened or that I was ashamed of, or that I was that I was having a difficult time working with, I would pull the mantra out and I would just recite it over and over and over again, and then it would go away. You know, there's so many ways to begin to shape a new way, pathways in the brain. So neural pathways are created by having a new way of being. So they used to say 30 days creates a new pattern. I've actually heard it takes 90 days. So if you worked with one mantra every day for 90 days, a new pathway will begin to be shaped for you. And I say it's like a road. You drive down a road, and that's the same road that you go every day. And that's like the thought form in your brain. So you're used to thinking negative thoughts every day. Well, you have to create a new thought to create a new path. So you start to drive down a new path. You begin, and then you get pulled back over to the old road. And then you read it again, and you get pulled back into the old road. And all of a sudden, you stay on the new road, and you have a new neural pathway in the brain. And that's why recovery works, why 12-step programs work, or a recovery program works, is because it's a new pattern. What?
And entheogens.
Exactly. And so for me, you know, Ashley, I know that you talk a lot about the air elements and about supporting yourself with health. And there's so many ways of good health that we need to. But remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. A house isn't built in a day. It takes time. We have to create a new foundation. Here I am at 40 years of recovery. I can remember when.
Incredible. And you're inspiration to many.
Thank you. I used to, 40 minutes seemed like a long time. And I can remember the first 30 days of recovery. And how did I get here? I got here because of all of you. I didn't get here alone. I got here from individuals supporting me. I have a thought for a new book, and it has to do with the support that we receive, that we don't get here alone. I am who I am today because of you. I am who I am today because of all of the we's that are in my life, the people who support my growth and who love me even when I couldn't love myself. So surround yourself with cheerleaders, champions for yourself. I was someone who, my terrorist in my mind was so great that it actually kept me from leaving the house a lot, because I was sure that people hated me as much as I hated myself. I know that you can't see that today, hopefully, in me. And if you could, then why would you want to listen to what I have to say? But what I would have to tell you is that, first of all, it's between our ears. That's probably been the biggest growth for me, is how many ways I've been able to tease apart the thought form that I had in my mind. And they would be things like, in the beginning, there were not people around my area in the Midwest that were studying spirituality. So I felt really weird, and I felt like a duck out of water. I grew up in the military, so I wanted to belong. So that's been a real theme in my life. And it's actually what the wound was recently, is I longed to belong. And separation was a big piece in my life. And so I realized is that I have to first belong to me. And one way I do that is to really ask myself questions like, how do you know you're not good enough, Shekinah? And then I realize, oh, I don't know that. And then I start teasing apart, and what areas am I not good enough in? Well, no, I can't fly a plane, so I'm definitely not good enough at that. I'm a pretty damn good cook. I am good enough in that. I can cook. Some things I'm better at than others. But we live, I'm not good enough in every area of our lives, but we never question, am I really not good enough? And we live it, and it keeps us from taking steps in our lives. So no matter how far down the path you've gone on the healing journey, or you're just beginning, first start asking questions about how you learned what you learned.
Yeah, a question so powerful. It was such an amazing point. And I find too that sometimes when we're asking those questions, or when we're searching for like those things that we're good at, sometimes it is just a voice, or like one little glitch, one little comment at such a like a time where it for some reason made the biggest difference, but it doesn't have to anymore, because you're not your past, you're the person now. And now you have the choice to make of if you want to try that path again as an adult with these kind of things. So like just as an example, one thing that I really enjoy is dancing. Now I don't dance like anybody else, and I'm sure it's quite weird. But when I was a kid, I really enjoyed it, and I went in jazz classes and different things, and I was never good enough for that. So I spent years and years not dancing, but do you know what? I have like Anishinaabe in my blood, and I'm used to dance like, so they like dance like the birds, and I'm like, that's where it comes from. And I get to explore that now as an adult, even though as a child, I had that taken away from me from the people that I don't even know their names. They were just kids in my class. So
such a great point that you made, Ashley, is that first the word choice, right? We have to make a choice. But who says what a good dancer is?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's all made up. So if you're with somebody who's a ballroom dancer and you want to dance a different way, they're probably not going to like the way you dance. Again, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. How many people do you think you can please?
Yeah.
And I know people have heard this, but please yourself. At least one person you know will be pleased, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was thinking about what about joy and if how many times in my life I tried to fit in, and yet what does that actually mean? It means I'm trying to be something I'm not. And I may find if I have one person that loves me and really cares about me, I can adhere to that one person reflecting to me who they see me as and enjoy them. But we live in this world that people are trying to fit in to so many cubicles, and it'll never happen. So find joy in the joy that you are, not in the joy that other people think you should be. And by the way, while they think you should be something different, they're not what they want to be either. And so you're trying to live up to somebody's expectations when they're not even able to live up to their own. So it's a vicious cycle that we're talking about, Ashley.
Yeah, we're almost getting into narcissism now.
Narcissism, exactly. The other thing that's so important to me is our emotions, being able to be with our emotions. Emotions, it's just like the word, they're in motion, right? And when they're not in motion, they become a mood. And so we often, when we begin on our healing path, whether it's from food or whatever it is, we live in moods. And those moods are stuck emotions. It's normal. It feels like shit. When you begin to untease them or untangle them, it's a journey, but it is okay, and it will become safe for you to feel those emotions. And you will probably need to feel grief and anger and sadness, but it will end. And for some of us who had chronic behavior, chronic emotional abuse, it may feel like it's never going to end, but I guarantee you, if you're going to feel it, it will end. It may feel like it's never going to end. I will tell you, the first 15 years of my recovery, I was suicidal almost every day because I was so sad. I was so hurt. And I didn't know that. I just knew that I didn't know how to live and I wanted out. And so what I tell people is take baby steps, surround yourself with people who understand. Make sure you're getting the right support, whether it's psychotherapy or a coach. but get support, because we are not meant to do it alone. I've said that before. And know that emotions are a healthy part of being a human being. It's just that many of us may not have learned how to feel. And then they get all tangled up in stories, and we have stories about our stories. And so when we begin to just be able to feel, be able to notice where it is in our bodies, and then be able to articulate it to somebody else that we feel trust with, that can support us, I think that is the best thing that we can do for ourselves, is not be alone. Not do it alone, not expect to do it alone, to remember that no one else got the roadmap to life, that we're all working on finding a way to come home to ourselves. It's an inward job and an outward expression of who we really are. I have to say today, for the most part, I love who I am. I know who I'm not. I'm not perfect. And I always say I'm perfectly imperfect, and I'm fine with that.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much, Linda. There's been so much power behind everything that you're saying today. And I'm just looking at the time here. I want to keep going. So do you mind if we keep going just for a couple more minutes?
Sure. Go ahead. What would you like to talk about?
So one thing that like really caught me when you were talking is you're saying, I didn't know how. So you had all these suicidal feelings and everything going on, but you didn't know how to get out of it. And it can be really hard to have people who maybe want to reach out to you and you're not ready to, or vice versa. There may be somebody that you want to reach out to. In my case, that was like a parent that just won't receive anything. And so it was when you, there's two ways I want to go with this. One, I want to just talk about intuition a little bit, about which person or how did you know which person you were supposed to? How did you know that safe feeling of, and find that balance of who you were going to talk to, or which direction you wanted to go? How did you turn into that intuition?
Well, that's a great, yeah, so that's a great question about intuition, but let me answer the first part about depression or how to get help or reach out, or there's a lot in there. And I will tell you that unless a person has experienced depression, I think it's really difficult for anybody to know how the depth of it's like drowning. I couldn't feel myself. I didn't feel joy or happiness. I felt like I was in this gray, ashy energy. And like there was a filter between you and I. And you would be maybe, let's say, happy, and I would want to be happy, but all I could feel is this drowning feeling. And I believe for myself, what was going on is I was drowning in emotions that were living in me as a mood. I hadn't allowed myself to feel the hurt and the sadness and the grief and the anger of growing up suppressed. And so that journey was a road, and it was a long road for me. It doesn't have to be, but it was for me. And what I began doing was I just put one step in front of the other. I chose not to take medication because as a drug addict, I had always drugged my emotions in one way or the other. And so what I did is I steeped myself in psychotherapy and learning about what would help me, like good food and spirituality and meditation, to begin to shape a different experience and start to understand what was possible. It didn't mean I believed it. It just meant that I knew I was being led, that there was something else possible. And there were enough people in my life through the years who had cared for me that I knew that there must have been something of value inside of me. For someone who is dealing with somebody who's depressed, the best thing you can do is be consistent with them. Know that you're not responsible for their healing, and that you can ask them questions like, what would be supportive for you? How would you, is there something that I could do or some way that I could be with you that would support you? Have you considered? But asking questions, we can lead a horse to water, we can make them thirsty, but we can't make them drink.
Yeah.
Anybody's recovery is their responsibility. And I've had friends commit suicide. I've had them die of alcoholism and drug addiction. Had people decide to stay in those spaces. And all I can do is say, I'm here if you want me to be here. And along the way, I still support men and women in many ways in their own journey. As a coach, I am, and then I sponsor. But I think to what you're saying, Ashley, is the soul has to want it more than it wants to stay where it is. But depression, and I would say, is hatred of self, at least the kind of depression that I experienced. I can't speak for the kind of depression that other people experience.
Yeah.
Then to what you were saying.
There are several kinds. It's, again, just like most of what we talk about, it's bio-individual. Yes. Everybody has their own experience. And that experience, if you can make it through, good or bad, that's going to transform you again into where it is that you're supposed to be. And eventually that will become love, and that will become gratitude. If you just keep the course and ride the wave and get there. And hopefully this encourages you to reach out to people, because people make the process enjoyable, and finding the right people and experimenting with people. Maybe don't commit to just one right away, and put yourself out there into a few different groups and see what feels right after a week or 2 weeks, and take it from there, or even day by day.
I often tell people, this journey, I don't know if all of you know about connecting the dots. When I was a kid growing up, they had these picture books, and you connect the dots, and it turned out to be a picture of somebody. It could be a president or whatever, a flower. Life is a little bit like connecting the dots. You never know where the next number is going to take you, or the next step, or the next person you talk to, or the next book. But everything is a guide along the way. And in the book I've written, that's what the whole book was about listening to the guidance along the way. Self-hatred is one of the worst things. I don't want to wish that on anybody. It's a daily fight, and I know that. And so I don't sit here saying, oh, this is so easy. But I will say all of us are doing it. You're not doing it alone. Every single person on the planet needs to be doing it, and that's why we're in the position we are on the planet. You're not alone. Do you mind if I give my email address, Ashley?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if you want to reach out to me, my email is Linda, L-I-N-D-A-L, Fisher, F-I-S-C-H-E-R. No, it's Linda at LindaLFisher.com. It's Linda at LindaLFisher.com, and Fisher has a C in it. Reach out to me.
I'll put it in when I post this as well. So
yeah. And I'm happy to reach back to you, and if there's any question or guidance that I can offer you. And Ashley's here for you, and there's so much today that's available. Intuition. You're not going to know in the beginning that your intuition is taking you in the right place. But we learn how to listen to our intuition as we get clearer and clearer with our emotions, with our body, and with our language. It's how do we be a healthy, whole person? It's a journey. I think we need to be teaching this in schools. I think we need to be teaching what I'm, as an ontological coach right now, I'm at a training with Newfield Network, which is the training school that trains coaches. We're one of the top 3 schools in the world. But we teach people that body is 55% of what people read, okay? Emotion and tonality is 38%, and language is 7%. So I'm on here today talking with you. There's a lot of words, but you're reading my body and emotion more than you're reading my words. So hopefully you feel through this conversation my care and the care of Ashley, and that you're not alone. And that's what I want to leave you with. You're not alone. There's an inner guidance that's always been with you. You may not understand it. You don't need to listen to it or to begin to ask it to help you, and to listen to the subtle signs on in your outer world along your journey, and know that maybe I'm one of them today. Ashley, anybody else that you meet in the day, and know that you're not alone, that we walk this path together, that nobody was given the roadmap to life, that we're all learning it as a we, not a me, not an I, but as a we. We can do together what I alone cannot.
Oh,
thank you, Ashley.
Well, thank you so much, Linda, for being here, your time today. Do you have time for one more question, or
I do. Yes.
Okay. So the second one that I had was when you were saying, like, you were saying that you can't or you don't know how. When did you actually start asking the questions and approaching it with curiosity of how can I pull myself out of this? Was there like a point that it just clicked, or maybe a tool or a combination?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, because I think I was very unconscious for a very long time. It's sort of like waking up. You know, have you ever woke up in the morning, you felt like you had a really deep sleep, like you slept hard, maybe you say? Well, that's a little bit like my journey to become conscious. I felt like I had woken up and I had been sleeping really hard. And I just started asking the questions. You know, it's like I believe my mantra in life is my life is an answered prayer. My life is an answered prayer. My life is an answered prayer. And what I mean by that is that when we have a really strong request in our soul, in our body, in our inner world, and we hold that question, guidance will be sent our way. And mine was, I wanted to live a better life. I wanted to be the person I was always meant to be. I wanted to find out who I am. So I don't know when it was, but what I can tell you is I still do the same thing today that I did years ago. Every day I want to be the best essence of love that I can be. I want people to leave my presence feeling better than they arrived. I want people to know that they're not alone. I want me to know I'm not alone. I want to be my lover. I want to be the one who cares for me and isn't the terrorist in my brain. And I can tell you, I can still do that. Even though I have all these tools, I can still do that. So I don't know that any of us can answer that. I believe the truth of it is, Ashley, that as humans, Pierre D. Chardin says that we're humans, that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I say we're a spiritual being learning to embody in human form. The Course in Miracles says love brings up anything unlike itself for the purpose of healing, which means anything inside of me that is unloving needs to come up and out to be healed.
Yeah, I love it. That's what the whole talk was for, that right there. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. It's so true. I believe that 100%. I've seen it over.
But who wants to have their shit show?
Yeah. But that's
one of us want to look good.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is, every single one of us has been lustful and gluttony and all of those things. And if we can accept that part of us and love it, it will go away sooner than if we hate it and we deny it and we pretend it isn't true.
Fear, you know, and a lot of things can be scary as an adult, let alone in childhood. And a lot of the time, that's where some of these things are stemming from when it comes to addiction and mental health. So let's conquer that fear, walk into it, because we're not a kid anymore. Now we're the adult. One of my biggest healing moments was when I looked at myself in the mirror, saw like my childhood self as an adult, as a mother, and was able to say, and listen and have that conversation with that part of me. It was a really powerful and transformational time for me. But yeah.
So the little one, so let's talk about that. When I first started hearing about working with the little one, my little one says, there is no way I'm going to trust you, to me, because you've beat me up and you've held me down so much. The little one, let me talk about that. The little one is that little emotion that feels childish or childlike, right? And it was so squashed because I tried to be an adult. I got, clean and sober, and I've got to be responsible and be an adult. And yet I have this little one who's playful and, all of that. But I had to get her to trust me, right? And so today, coming on this call, I had no idea. I had some thought about what I could say. But the truth of it is, I said to her, it's okay. You don't have to be perfect. We're going to have fun. Ashley's loving, caring. Whatever you say, whatever is spoken, it's okay. It's going to touch you, me. This helped me today. But it's not about denying our part. There's the teenager in me. There's the adult. Now there's the elder in me that I'm just getting to know. So this journey, if we can know that it's about embracing all parts and being gentle and kind, and love means being gentle and kind. Love means being accepting. Love means being forgiving. Love means that no matter what, we're worthy.
Yeah.
No matter what. Yeah. So the last thing I would leave you with is trust yourself to know that you're not alone, that we're walking this path together, and that you're good enough just as you are, and that we all make mistakes, and we're learning to do this human thing together and to bring our wholeness, our spiritual selves more in the forefront, and our wounds then begin to take a back seat. I don't think they ever leave us completely, but they allow us the freedom to accept them and to feel like we can have a place in the world, and joy and love and spontaneity of life becomes a way. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And for everyone else just watching the call now, I do have a simple journaling exercise for you guys. If you want to get out a pen and paper and maybe take some time to meditate on these questions throughout your week. The first question is, what's the best thing you can imagine happening to you? Now, when have you experienced that kind of feeling before? Lastly, how will self-love allow you to manifest your positive visualizations? I'm hoping that there is something that resonated with you on this talk today and can help you show a little bit more self-love so that you can repattern yourself to love yourself as naturally as you breathe. I love you all so very much, and I'm so grateful again, Shekinah. You are such a great energy and you have so much wisdom to share. I guess we'll call this a meeting though. I'm going to get off the recording. Thank you all so much. Linda, stay there. I'm just going to stop this here. Bye.